This is an NCBI Labs Talking Technology podcast clip. Kyron, what have you done? You've switched from iPhone?
No, not yet. I'm about to.
Oh, you're
I'm
about to. Okay.
I'm feeling a little ashamed, David, actually. I don't know if I want to do this.
Why? Do you feel like a traitor?
I do actually, yeah, a little
Okay.
bit. But an opportunity came up. So in IA Labs, NCBI sister company, we test for digital accessibility on multiple devices. So we needed to get an Android device in to do some testing, and the thought occurred to me, well, listen, maybe we could see how I would get on for it. But I'm feeling the regret now. I've just informed my wife that she can say goodbye to blue texts. So my iMessage days are stopping for a little while.
And FaceTime.
And FaceTime as well. FaceTime is gone. Yeah. I think, maybe over the next few weeks, I might need a little bit of support from fellow iOS users like yourself. I think just to, you can just send me pictures of what good UX used to look like.
Yeah, exactly. We can send you screenshots on Teams and just be like, remember the good old days?
Yeah. Remember when things didn't crash?
So, Kyron, I suppose before we get into the nitty gritty of this, then what you mentioned iMessage and FaceTime, but what do you have like apprehensions going into this? What are you expecting and what are you maybe nervous about?
Well, I've said on other podcasts as well, on Talking Technology, that for me, my iPhone is probably, as someone with very low vision, my iPhone is probably my number one accessibility tool. So everything from public transport, I use it to zoom in on bus numbers, to reading documents and work during the day, right up till preparing food. I use it to read labels, to going to bed at night. I read my little girl her nighttime stories using the magnification app. So I'm a bit nervous about that. The other side of things is, one of the things that originally drew me to iOS was the ability to make the font size quite big. So I use pretty much the largest font size on iOS. So I'm a little bit nervous about that. But the team here, Sean, soon to be unemployed Doran, and Daniel, I used to have a job. Done have really assured me that they can set up Android in a way that's going to make it accessible for me. So I thought it'd be a good opportunity to go through that process with all of our listeners.
Okay, brilliant. So before we start, do you believe that this will be a positive experience? And we'll ask you the same question again in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, actually, I do. To be fair, it's a unique opportunity, so I'd like to do it, and hopefully we're all still friends at the end. Maybe.
Brilliant. Okay, well let's get down to business then, shall we? So you haven't set the phone up yet, I believe. So first of all, what phone have you got there, and why don't you describe it, I suppose, tactily first? How does it feel? What was your first impression when you took it out of the box?
Slippy.
Okay.
Actually, genuinely.
So, are you a case man on your iOS device?
Not yet, no. Well, so on my iOS. So I just for perspective, I use the one of the Pros. I'm not sure which model it is, and one of the reasons I don't really know which model it is, because I tend to just go for whatever has the biggest screen. That's typically, the first buying decision that I would have when I'm picking a phone. So whatever I can use as biggest screen. So it's an iPhone. It's one of the Pro Maxes. I'm not really sure which model it is. And what I'm switching to, and it was a recommendation by Sean Doran on the NCBI Labs team, to go with probably a pure Android experience, Sean. I think that's what you told me. So it's a Pixel Pro 7, I believe it is. That's correct, Sean, is it?
Yeah, so I was suggesting we go with a Pixel device because it will have stock Android, which is Android at the intended build. So when Google build Android and do updates for Android, it's called the stock version. It's basically what they put out. So other manufacturers like Samsung might take that build and change it slightly, change the menu structure, put overlays on it, add different things to it, sometimes take away things. So a stock version we thought would be best just for someone who's going to be brand new to Android.
Now, one thing I will say, I have hit the on button. And on the very first screen that I see in really large writing, it says "Welcome to your Pixel," and there's a very clearly defined accessibility setup option. So we're off to a pretty good start, I would say, Dave.
That sounds good. And that option is on the screen, is it? And it's easy to see.
Yeah, very first screen that comes on. So it's a black background with high contrasting white text, which is good.
Yeah.
It's meeting all the kind of the general kind of digital accessibility requirements. And there is some background graphics that are kind of mobile, but they're not distracting at all, and I don't think they're taking away from your ability to clearly read it. What I noticed too, which was a nice little feature, was that it automatically detected that the language was English Irish or English Ireland, and then defaulted to set up the accessibility settings. So now the call to actions to actually move next are quite small, I would say. But again, I can clearly see that it's a button. I can't read what's on the button, but I'm assuming it's the next button.
And is that also in white text then?
It's in black, but the call to action has a surround button, which is kind of a lightish blue, which is kind of taking away from some of the visibility of the button, I would say. Okay. I'd say the contrast ratio is a little different. And interestingly, it's the smallest text of the entire screen, which is an unusual design decision, but I would commend so far, given that accessibility is the default option that you need to set up. So I have that selected, but I think it's probably on to move to see how you would set up accessibility on the Google phone, if you think that's the next.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Now, let me just see. It's prompting me to go through to Wi-Fi. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to try it out one more time, because I think that the call to action was not to move into the accessibility settings, would be my guess. So I'm going to restart the phone just to make sure that I'm not mistaken on that one.
And what was it that indicated to you that it was accessibility before?
Just a writing with accessibility and kind of the accessibility icon of the man.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what I thought that time. Okay, now
and we should say, I suppose, as well, for those who don't know you, Kyron, that you have low vision and that you're not a screen reader user.
No, I have enough usable vision usually to get around most devices. I use audio captions sometimes on TV, but I wouldn't use screen readers.
Do you ever use like a physical, say, handheld magnifier now or anything like that, or?
Oh, I grew up with them, yeah, like most people, yeah. Before I started using my iPhone, I usually had one of them close by at all time.
I still have one here just next to me.
Yeah. I only recently found I used to use monoculars as well for long distance, and I actually found a little box of them recently. I thought I'd lost, and I've now started to carry one as a kind of a backup now, so just in case my iPhone goes down. So I think what I've noticed is after restarting now has jumped past the accessibility settings. So I think I'm going to have to go through some of the normal setup process. My guess would be is that that text was selectable to bring into accessibility. So I think this will tell you how real life it is. I'm literally doing this for the first time. So I'm going to need to put in some Wi-Fi passwords and things like that. So why don't you go back to Sean and Daniel just to talk a little bit about the accessibility options on the device while I key in some password details.
Absolutely. So I suppose we'll come to you first, Daniel, then, because you have experimented a little bit with the Android side, I believe. So you've actually been a bit of an advocate for the Android side in the past. So what's your impression of Android from an accessibility point of view?
Yeah, I suppose once it's set up and to be aware of the range of options that are available in the accessibility menu, it's I suppose somebody coming fresh into Android might be saying, oh, well, is this available or is that available? And generally the answer is yes. So it's when you delve under the cover then, and let's say you're setting up magnification, and one thing I like about the Android is it'll give you obviously magnification. You can switch it on, and how you how you bring that into play when you want it. And my favorite option is actually gives you about 2 or 3 different options. My favorite option for the magnification is the triple tap with one finger on the screen, and setting that as the call to action to bring magnification into play is one thing that impresses me, because it's really, really easy. It's really easy to work with then, you know. So that's one of my favorite features of the Android accessibility.
That's interesting, because that's a 3-finger job on the iOS side. So
yeah,
that's a really interesting difference, isn't it? And Sean, from your... Sorry, go ahead, Daniel. Sorry.
Yeah, it is for me, because I have both phones. So personal use, I have the Android, and for work purposes, I have the iOS. So for me, magnification is way easier on the Android.
Interesting. And Sean, if I could ask you on a similar note, what's your impression of the Android side then? Do you use Android much? Do you find yourself using Android much?
Yeah, on my personal phone, I use Android. I just always have. From a training point of view and a support point of view, obviously we use iPhones at work. iPhones were first out the gate with accessibility, so they obviously had a bigger market share in terms of people using it. And like from NCBI's point of view at staff, they're easier to secure and maintain and, you know, provide that kind of user functionality, because it's one operating system for all devices. So from a security point of view, it allows us to easily manage them. From a training point of view, it allows us to more easily train people, because if I tell you, David, that I need you to do this thing in iOS, I can tell you exactly where to go to on the menu, and that'll be the same across all phones. But with Android, I kind of like that it's slightly different in terms of each phone has a kind of different flavor. You know, the Samsung can do one thing better, a Huawei might do this thing better, or, you know, like stock Google, like we're talking about there with phones like the Pixels, will have your standard version. So it gives a lot of flexibility in how I can change things and add things. So sometimes a device's greatest strength can be its weakness. For me, I like that kind of flexibility where I can add programs, change things around, maybe change the, you know, default email application. And I know iOS is starting to do that too, but that is the kind of reason I like in my personal phone having those options with Android. But while at work, when I need to actually maybe train someone, it's far more efficient for me to do that on an iOS device.
So you're kind of hinting there, I think, that you can kind of style an Android phone to your lifestyle a little more than perhaps you can on the iOS side there.
Yeah, no, if I was to buy my mother a phone, I'd buy her an iPhone, because if she rings me asking how to do something, I can tell her exactly how it's done. If she has a Samsung phone and I have a OnePlus phone and our operating systems are slightly different, it might take me 5 or 6 minutes to maybe talk her through how to get to a certain setting and fix that, while the consistency of iOS devices is very beneficial. And I'm laughing here at Dominique has put a question in, but it's more of a statement. She's saying she admires Kieran and Mairead for switching over, and she says it'll never be her, and Apple are far better when it comes to accessibility. And I think when Dominique says admire, she might pity Kieran and Mairead there, but the point of this whole thing is
I'm already feeling the pain, Dominique. Feeling the
pain. Apple accessibility, while, you know, it's out the gate first and it's really good, Android accessibility is getting much better, and it allows people options in terms of prices for phones. And, you know, you can get a phone for maybe €100 all the way up to the same price of an iPhone of €1,000 and everything in between. So it's those kind of options which can be beneficial to an Android user.
So I've gotten to the point where I'm at the home screen. So I went through the typical kind of onboarding screens. The couple of things that jumped out at me straight away is the keyboard. I find that the text on the keyboard is a little bit smaller, the default keyboard. And I'm sure there's probably options out there for changing the keyboard are installed. So that'll be my first question to the to our Android gurus how I could put a keyboard that has larger fonts within the text, because now I can pretty much touch type. So I can pretty much decide where it was. But when I was putting in passwords that would have had special characters and things like that, that was a bit of a struggle for two reasons. One is because I'm just not used to that, how Android, you navigate between characters and special characters. And then on iOS, I can pretty much remember them now because it's kind of muscle memory, as opposed to needing that visual cue. So I did struggle a little bit in that. So I haven't enabled any of the accessibility settings yet. I do think that's something, a good feedback point for Android is that, if you accidentally go past the accessibility settings, it should bring you back when you restart the phone. So obviously there's some flag internally on the operating system I think would need to be updated. In general, I mean, this is a pretty good screen. It's a pretty large screen, so I can just about get by. Like, I wouldn't use this day to day without accessibility settings turned on. I can pretty much, I know that for certain. So what I was going to suggest is, and if we still have time, David, I'm not sure how much time we have left, but
we have as long as you want. We can stay here to 7 if you want.
I will happily do that. I think maybe Sean and Daniel could give me a little bit of advice on how to set it up for someone with low vision, and what settings you would typically go through with a service user if they came in with the level of vision that I would have. So first, how do you find settings? I can't find settings.
So if you swipe down into your notifications, got
it.
And you can drag that a bit further, and there should be a cog there on the bottom right-hand side or somewhere on that screen.
Got it. Yeah. Okay, so I'm in. Oh yeah, and I see there's an accessibility area. Okay, so looking at the default Android accessibility, the first option I have is TalkBack. So I think I'll move past that one for now because I don't typically use TalkBack, but it's good to know that it's there. The next one is, display size and text, which I'm pretty looking forward to changing.
This is an area now that is critical for you, really, because it's what you're using on the iOS side.
Exactly. Yeah. It looks like there is 1, 2, 3, 4 points of font size changes from smallest to largest. That would be something that would be quite different now on iOS. On iOS, there's up to 12. You can enable through accessibility further large fonts, so you can go right up to size 12. So there's a little bit more granular change. Okay, so I'm at the maximum font size now. That didn't really change too much on the screen, which is kind of interesting. So for example, the actual text on the settings area didn't update as I updated the font size. There's a second option, which is display size. So make everything bigger or smaller. Yeah. I'm going to increase that as well, which looks like it increases both the icons and the actual the text as well. So that's a bit strange, but maybe it's just what I'm used to. And there's another option for bold text, which I am going to enable. Okay, yeah, well, that does definitely make things a little bit more contrast.
Cool. So yeah, they will be so straight away there. You got through all that, Kyron, without much assistance. So well done on that.
Thanks, Daniel.
Yeah. Magnification is in there.
So I'm going to go back. Okay, things are certainly much easier to read now in the settings area. I can see it does look like font scaling, so things aren't overlapping too much, which is great to see, by the way. Yep. Well done, Android. Or Team Android, I should say. Okay, magnification. So okay, I have options magnification shortcut. Do you recommend turning that on, Daniel?
I do indeed, and if you may notice, there's a little inscription below that. It should maybe say something like triple tap screen or tap accessibility button. You might be able to tip on that and it brings up the full suite of options. So after you turn it on, you have it turned on?
I do, yes, magnification shortcut. So I have a red icon that's appeared on the screen, which looks kind of like a magnifying glass. Is that the one you're referring to?
That's the floating one. So it is. So that's a kind of an accessibility button for that. Mm-hmm. in the menu then, where you had the magnification shortcut on the switch, in below that you should have the options to set the shortcut. Now I'm following this from a Samsung, so it could be slightly different on the Google.
Also, it says to zoom in, use shortcut to start magnification, tap the screen, drag 2 fingers to move around the screen, and pinch with 2 fingers to adjust. And then it says to zoom in temporarily, make sure that the magnification type is set to full screen. So I don't see the one you're talking to. There's an information button, but I don't see.
Okay. So what I'm looking for is kind of the actions that you can start, selecting actions that you can start to use magnification directly.
No, doesn't seem to have those
about
ones.
triple tap.
Sounds like this
there.
might be slightly different.
Yeah, it might be just a. So the only option. Oh, here we go. Nope. The only options I have are threefold. I've got magnification shortcut, which is on or off.
Yeah.
I've got magnification type, which is full screen or part of a screen.
Okay.
And then I have magnify typing. So magnifier follows text as you type, and both of those are just binary options. You can enable or disable them. So, do you reckon this could be a difference in the Pixel version of Google?
I believe so.
Absolutely, yeah, I believe so. Have you your Google phone handy, Sean?
No, I have my Android, my OnePlus phone handy.
Okay.
So yeah. I have to say, just while I'm sure you guys are desperately Googling, what I did notice is now that the magnification icon, it's persistent on the screen. So if I move back to the home screen, it's there. If I click on it, it actually is quite. If you have enough vision to orientate yourself on the screen. So for example, I'm on the home screen now. I can't really read the label on one of the icons. I touch the magnification icon and hold my finger near there, and it will magnify that quite considerably up. So from getting that level of orientation, I do like that implementation of it.
Do you find that little accessibility icon of I think you described it as a red magnifier earlier on. Do you find that gets in the way a little bit, or is it kind of tucked neatly out of the way when you're not using it?
You can press and hold and put that wherever you like. Then,
yeah, I mean that's a really good question. So one of the things that I've always said, and we've talked about this a lot in NCBI Labs, is the difference between, what I kind of call an inclusive tool versus an accessible tool. Like if it's an accessible tool, you're using something that's specific for accessibility. So having that persistent icon there that reminds me that I need to have that there I do think might get annoying. I don't know.
Yeah.
But over the next few weeks,
I'll certainly. In the menu, was there if you just tap on the words magnification shortcut?
Okay, let me come back in.
Because on my phone, it gives me the option of using that little shortcut where it's the red icon on the side, or I can press and hold my volume keys for 3 seconds, or I can triple tap the screen.
Yeah, that's why I'm looking to get you to the triple tap of the screen. I think is the most fluid one.
Okay, so I did do that, and yes, you're right. There's more options to come up. I have tap. Now, I wouldn't have known to click that now unless you told me. So, but that could be. I'm not familiar with the operating system as opposed to it being.
Well, that could certainly be made clearer from a UI standpoint.
Yeah, I would think so. So what I have now is I have magnification shortcut, and then I have tap accessibility button, and that's selected, and there's more options below that. Then I have hold volume keys, so I can obviously use the volume keys to go up and down, which I probably wouldn't use because I listen to a lot of music. And then at the very bottom, there's triple tap screen. I think that's the one you're looking for, Daniel, is it?
That's the one I'm looking for, yeah.
So triple tap screen. If I save that then, I should be able to disable the shortcut. Isn't that correct?
Shortcut should probably disappear, the little floaty, because you've no other... that little floaty, you can assign different accessibility functions to that.
Oh, brilliant. Okay.
Yeah. So you can, let's say you can set your triple tap for the magnification screen, which is what I kind of recommend. I'd like that little accessibility feature, and later on we'll get to this, is to have him control your select to speak function.
Actually, I'm experimenting with your triple tap to zoom in, and that is a slick way to do it, I have to say.
And it's 2 fingers to move around after that.
Yeah. Oh no, I don't want
And
YouTube to send me notifications.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And you can pinch zoom then to adjust your. As long as you should have an orange border around the screen, am I right in saying?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, so that's how you know you're magnified up. While that orange border is there, you can use pinch zoom to go in further or come out further on your screen.
Actually, yeah, I have to be fair, right? And I know I'm an iOS guy, but I could see myself getting quite used to this, because this is one of the features in iPhone that I was really worried I was going to lose. You know?
Sure. Yeah.
So this is a nice implementation, I have to say. Yeah.
Would you say it's a better implementation? I know this is very early for me to ask that question, but would you say it's a better implementation?
Do you know what I find is that on iPhone you use 3 fingers instead of 3 fingers to triple tap? If I
3 fingers, 3 fingers twice.
3 fingers twice. Sorry. What I actually tend to do on my own phone is I use the side button. I do the triple tap for to bring up the accessibility options, and I'll get to it there on my iPhone. But is it better?
That's next week's question, is it?
I think my gut is telling me I'm going to like that. I have to say, I think I'm going to like that.
Okay, God. Interesting. God, we've converted him already.
Well, the next one. So, is there any other features that you think I should focus on, just in the interest of time? So,
yes, select to speak. Select to speak will be a feature I think you would like.
Okay. Accessibility. Oh, select to speak. Okay, yeah. So it's select to speak shortcut. There's an enable.
Yeah.
Allow select to speak.
Allow, okay. Yeah. So you have to give it permissions to drive the phone.
Now my accessibility button has turned blue.
Cool. So tap once. Okay, return to the home screen.
Okay.
Tap once on the accessibility icon and tap once on an icon.
Maybe I think Teams might be killing the text-to-speech noise, but
it is actually working great. So, well, just to describe what I'm doing, so I'm clicking the blue button, and then I'm clicking, let's say, YouTube or something like that, and it's reading out that icon. That is quite nice.
And does that work then? Let's say you Google something. Can you use that to say tap a link, for example, on the Google search results page, or tap to get the title of a YouTube video, for example?
Yeah.
Pretty much anything.
I'd write paragraphs and lines and
text messages.
For the
next one I want you to try. Kyron, is on the home screen, right? Tap that blue icon again, but then imagine drawing a square, but not physically drawing a square on the screen. You're kind of pulling from the top left to the bottom right corner, and you will see a square appear, and everything you highlight in that square gets red. So if you kind of diagonally went over 4 icons, it's like using a mouse.
So again, I'm not sure you can see that, but actually there's a message on the top of the screen. So if I give me the instructions one more time, so I pull down, is it, Daniel?
No, so let's say if pick a group of 4 icons, right? And after tapping the blue select to speak, and you're just going to go from the top left icon down to the bottom right icon, just out of a group of 4 of anywhere on the screen. If you've got 4 icons in a kind of a square, so you should notice a green square gets drawn on this behind your finger while you're dragging from let's say northwest to southeast.
Yep, and it's working. Actually, that is working quite well, because one of the things I would be critical of iOS on this one. For reading back the screen, I know there's a 2-finger gesture. You pull down from the top, and you can read the screen. I find that gesture can be extremely difficult to get right. I tend to have to do it 2 or 3 times before I'll get it to pull down the I'll get my notifications panel. I got to be call a spade a spade. I think that is also, again, that's a really nice implementation of an accessibility feature that I can really see myself using.
Yeah, I like the fact that you can define where on the screen you want the text read from.
Yeah, that's exactly.
So if there's kind of a block of text to the right of a web page, you could just kind of draw over that block of text on the right hand side of a web page, and it'll just read that only.
So the next one really, unless there's a specific feature that you want me to look at now, which I'm happy to, is Zoom. So for ability like to have a kind of a monocular in my pocket that I could use to, see things that are long distance, like buses or whiteboards or things like that. Is there an equivalent on Android?
Not native. You have to download third-party magnifiers currently.
And is there one that we would recommend to people that are using Android, Sean?
Offhand, I haven't been recommending any of them recently. I don't know if you have, Daniel.
Not in particular now. And just checking my phone, because I did download one about a year ago, I have to say. And did I play much with it? I'm not a magnifier user, so because I didn't.
I think I've got you on guys, but I think that's one we can.
There is a magnifier
look into.
and microscope one, and the only drawback to this is there's going to be a small little banner at the bottom because it's a free app. Well, I'm sure.
What was the name of it again?
It's called Magnifier and Microscope.
Cool.
One of the reasons why we suggested the Pixel 7 was because the camera itself has such good optical and combined digital zoom that outside of a dedicated app, the camera app in there is really useful for zooming long distances, especially reading the likes of buses. And I know Adrian's been giving us lots of advice in the chat. So he's been saying like the likes of WeZoom. He's also told us about, much like iOS, you can, on the third tap, you can hold it to move around, which is like double tapping with 3 fingers and then moving around. And
thanks for all the advice, Adrian, by the way, just to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Adrian.
And Adrian's also suggesting that he uses the Swift key keyboard, which allows resizing, and much like that, the Google keyboard has settings where you can change it about. So there is a fair bit of configuration.
Yeah, the Gboard is quite flexible as well. You can choose your different themes in it, so you can set up high contrast keyboards and you can adjust the height of it. There's also kind of one finger mode, which allows you to snap it to the bottom left or bottom right of the screen as well. So if somebody didn't want to, some people type with their thumb nearly, just flying around the bottom of the screen.
And David, when you had Rebecca from Roboco on a few weeks ago, is that an iOS only app, or is that also available in Android?
Coming to Android, I believe there's an Android beta currently.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Well, I'd love to be a beta tester if she wants to reach out again. Do you know what I was just testing there, guys? And I think it might be equivalent. Is that, like Sean is right, that the zoom on this camera is one of the best. I actually think it's better. It's 3 in a row now, guys.
This is concerning.
Yeah, I know. I'm actually Go Team Android.
I'll be switching to Windows next.
The Pixel 7
don't push the boat out too far. This is a big change, David. So I've a kind of very into audio, and I have some speakers at the opposite side of the room, and I can literally zoom in on a very small piece of text, like the logo of the speakers. I'm actually a little blown away. But
so the Pixel 7 there has an amazing camera. It combines optical and digital zoom with AI correction in terms of if it's going to blur, it will autocorrect it with its own intelligence. But this is the problem with Android devices, because this is only available on that phone. So other cameras results may vary.
Yeah, I have to say most of the Samsung cameras I've ever had are fantastic. The quality and the zoom is fantastic. So
doesn't it beg our belief that when they have such a good camera built in, that they don't have a good magnification app also built in to benefit from it?
Yeah,
it's a fair point. Yeah,
there is. I have enabled a quick shortcut, so it prompted me when I launched the camera that time to say, do you want to enable a double tap on the sorry, not the home button, the power button, to bring up the camera. So, which is kind of equivalent to what I'm doing. I'm triple tapping on my iPhone power button to bring up the accessibility menus, and then I hit magnification. So it's kind of the same thing, but with a better camera and better. I'm feeling strange.
And how often would you use that on a daily basis, Kyron? Like on the iOS side now?
Magnification I'd use probably 30-40 times a day. Like it's pretty much like how if I'm working from home and I'm not, I'm out trying to getting a bus or anything like that, I wouldn't really use it as much for the long distance, but I'd use the short the zoom feature all the time. Like making lunch earlier, I wanted to see what the calories were on something, and I used that, and or like I'll use the zoom on the inbuilt zoom on the iPhone to if an app is designed particularly badly and I need to see more. So those type of features are like probably the most important to me. For mobility point of view, the zoom is definitely huge.
Yeah, Samsung have a magnifier built in under their accessibility options, and then you can enable that again. You just enable it with the power button and the volume up going, and that is built into Samsung. So I can't say for the Google Pixel whether they have that option further in, but maybe it's because we're used to magnification because Zoom on iOS. But if you actually go into the accessibility and see, is there magnifier is the thing you're looking for to use the camera to magnify things, whereas magnification is on-screen magnification. So slightly different wording there from your iOS.
I think we're going to have to get all the listeners to Google Stockholm Syndrome for when Kyron's on next week. He's going to be he's going to be an advocate for.
This is going to be really interesting. So I think in the interest of time, I think what we might do is we might leave both Kyron and Mairead to play around with their Android phones. And if you guys would be happy to join us on the next podcast, because I'll be honest, I'm kind of scared that this is going a little too well so far. Have I been lied to my entire life?
I told you we get them in the long grass, Daniel.
Well, it's not my phone, so it belongs to iLab. So if I have to give this back, will I buy my own at the end? That's the interesting question.
Thanks for listening to this NCBI Labs Talking Technology clip. For more just like this one, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. There you can also find loads of full podcast episodes. They're also available on your podcast app of choice or in the NCBI Smart Hub.